Hello, everyone. This is Ed Brenniger, and welcome to the Eddie Network podcast. My guest today is Kimber. She is the wife of one of my former guests, Cliff Kimber, who was on the podcast last year. Claire, I'm glad you're here. I think we're going to have a good time. I wish we were together in the same room so we could actually enjoy your expertise in real life, in real time. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what's your life is and what you're interested in, what your purpose is. Whatever you want to tell us. I know it'll be great.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you very much for inviting me. Just a little bit about me is that I'm a registered nutritionist, and I have a passion for food. It's all I eat. But that fascination sort of kind of grew. I'm a nutritionist on my second career, so it's my second reincarnation. Before that, I had a career in 25 years plus in financial services in the UK, and a lot of that was performing under pressure, lots of traveling, skipping meals, eating on the go, and lots of caffeine and chocolate. And perhaps in the past, though, that sort of lifestyle was a bit of a badge of honor, just skipping meals, going throughout the day. And I suppose for me, it gradually took a toll on my health, and a number of occasions it almost crashed and burned with it. And I then started to look at my health, what I could do. I did some reading, and also looked at my family. So from Cliff's perspective, and also my daughter, looking how food affected them, and sort of went back to something I was always passionate about when I was leaving school at the age of 16 then. And I thought I wanted to be a nutritionist, but I was persuaded by my father at that time to go and get a job in the city. So hence that's why I went into banking. But I think I still had that passion, that it just wanted to know a little bit more about it. So I then started to retrain and went through probably about 6-7 years of going back to look at all the sort of the biological side of things, the chemistry, the physics, how the body worked, and then got in to do my nutritional degree, and then into professional practice. And then eventually I sort of said goodbye to banking and hello to nutrition. And I suppose now I have a passion that's really helping, I suppose, stressed out professionals, and also women in leadership positions that are going through that perimenopause and menopause transition, because it's a particularly harsh time. You're in the prime of your life, in your, I suppose, mid-40s to mid-50s. You're juggling career, perhaps with teenage kids at uni, aging parents, but you're in the prime of your life. And then our bodies start to change, and we don't know what's happening. So I think I'm in a very privileged position now. I've done a lot of training and also self-discovery. It's I've been there, got the badge, got the t-shirt, and now I'm in a position where I can help others. And and I love that, and it is absolute privilege. That's what I think, in terms of people sharing their journeys or concerns with me, and I have then the ability to be able to help and support them.
That's fantastic.
Very long introduction. Sorry, Ed.
No, it's not long at all. I've got all kinds of questions in my mind flowing. Okay, what's the first one I want to? You said early in what you were saying that you had you were reached a point, and I think you described it as crashed and burned. crash and burn. You've described it that way. What does that look like? What are you feeling, or what are you experiencing physically when you enter in that kind of situation in your physical life where you're not doing well, and therefore it leads to the discussion about nutrition.
Yeah. So I think there's a number of factors. I mean, for me, I mean, I had a number of near crash and burn. I didn't quite get to there, but I had those real warning signs, and for me, it was around. I had two really I suppose big situations for me. And one was I was taken as an emergency because I had really bad stomach ache, and it ended up that I had to sign my life away at the age of 32. I was really in the prime of my career then in my early 30s. I was a manager of a branch, and I was leading a team of people, and I was told to sign my life away to say that actually whatever they find, they can take away. And this was all around sort of, the gynecological type of thing. So, basically, we may have to, remove your ovaries, your womb, whatever. It turned out it wasn't as bad as they initially thought. So it had some partial removal of ovaries. So things weren't quite functioning correctly. But I had that moment where I thought, well, we kind of said, oh, we'll have a family later on. I was in my prime. And then I suddenly thought, gosh, okay, I haven't got too long now. This is my warning sign. I'm not looking after myself. I was, in the opening up a branch at 8 o'clock in the morning, wouldn't be back home to 8 o'clock at night, not eating properly, not looking after myself. This is way before I'd kind of had that light bulb moment. And I think through my recovery, I realized that what I had to do, and read about, that sort of self-help. It's, whatever surgery needed to happen, that was done, dusted. It's now for me to kind of rest and repair. And then I suddenly understood, started to read about that power of nutrition. And if I wanted to have a family, I had this window. I was told I had this window of kind of, 2 years, basically. Get on with it. And it was like, well, no, but I want everything. I still want a career. I want to do. So I had to kind of, okay, what do I need to do to nurture and nourish myself to get myself into that better position? So I think that's when I first started to have that. And I think everybody who's had sort of like a health scare, it will have different aspects. For me, obviously, the woman, it affected me, potentially from a fertility perspective. Yeah. But other people that, in any walks of life will have, other aspects. It could be their heart, it could be their gut, it could be, we talk about also, with brain fog, and that happened to me later on in my career, in my early 40s. And this is where I realized, it was 15 years ago, and we didn't talk about perimenopause. We just knew it was the menopause. That was it. If you hit the 50s, that was bound to what was going to happen to you. We didn't know then there was this long transition.
Right.
And, in my 40s, again, I was in a leadership role, speaking presentations, and I stood up and I had this brain fog. And I was like, I was kind of a little bit like a rabbit in headlights. I was like, what is happening? But I know this, and I couldn't get my words out. And now I know that it is one of the classic and early signs of perimenopause. But then we had no idea. So again, it's looking at some of those signals that your body sends you. Is actually, come on, you need to sort of just look after yourself, and look at a little bit of self-help, and making sure that you're nourishing, you're feeding your body, we don't expect to get in a car and do a long journey without putting some petrol in it, or just checking the oil, or
But
the water.
I would suspect that none of this is simply about changing your diet. It really is about changing how you deal with stress. Sounds that, as well as the diet, kind of seem to go hand in hand.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I mean, I've seen that in other people. I've seen that in people, and and the reaction to the stress sometimes it's an unhealthy. They go to an unhealthy state,
Hmm.
but in other cases they go into kind of this radical departure from what they've always done, and it's it also kind of seems like it's an overreaction on the other end of things. So is there a place of moderation here that is important to understand, or am I just kind of talking out of my head?
No, I think I think there is absolutely an element of it. It's kind of getting that balance right, for you, isn't it? You can overreact to something, or not take notice of any signals. And I think when we have those sort of our stress responses, we're just, everything about our body is upregulated. So if you think about our ancestors, and this is our stress responses go back to our ancestors. We haven't really evolved in our stress responses. The stresses have. So if you think about our stress response, is actually governed by that hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which is the HPA axis, which I think you're probably referring to when you're saying that overreaction or underreaction. And and obviously the body then has this sort of domino effect of all these different chemicals happening, with the release of stress hormones, that adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol. And so we've evolved to naturally release this. So we would have done, running away from a saber-toothed tiger, or we fight the grizzly bear, or we freeze. If we froze, we would die. Whereas now, when we think about our everyday stress, there's so many stresses. There's the environmental stresses and our internal ones. So the environment is the day-to-day living, the plastics, and the food we're eating can be stressors, and things that we drink can be a stressor to us. And obviously, as well as the internal stresses that we have, the worries and concerns. So that either the real or the imagined stress will still have this response. So our bodies are upregulated. We are, our heart is beating faster. Our lungs are working harder. Our blood is pumping quickly, and it's the body's priority is to survive. And when we look at that, and you get the dry mouth, which is probably like I'm sitting here now with you. That's the natural response. But when you start to then layer that on the everyday stresses that we have, with financial worries, moving house worry, all those things, then you throw on, maybe something from our environment that we're eating that's not so good for us. Then we're relying on that longer term stress response, which is the cortisol, because the adrenaline is obviously that short, sharp boost to get us to fight or flight, and then that cortisol is still upregulated. And when that happens, this is when we start to see reactions in our body. Our blood glucose starts to rise, and we're then producing a lot more blood sugar than we really need to. So we have, insulin's always bringing it back down, and we've got this sort of, things happening in our bodies where we've got that little bit of this extra layer of fat around our middle, which is that stress hormone is causing that, because we're not burning those calories. And then we start, seeing that in terms of, just the stress response dampens down some of the ability to react to things. So it dampens down some of the brain-derived neurotropic factors, which is where we get that sort of decision making and things in our brain, where that can dampen down as well. So, and then it affects our hormones for sure. It affects our digestion and our immune system. So when you've had a period of high stress at work, perhaps you're working to a deadline before a holiday, and you go on holiday and you relax, and 2 or 3 days in, you've picked up a cold or the flu. So many people this year in the UK I've spoken to over the Christmas period had flu or had COVID because they kind of worked really, really hard and then relaxed. And and of course, then that immune system goes, I've got nothing left. But it's just that the cortisol, the high levels of cortisol that are running around in your body just kind of shuts down your immune system and digestion. Our bodies don't, you know yourself, if you're a little bit stressed, you don't fancy eating, you've gone off food, or if you are eating, it kind of just sits there because nothing really is happening. We can't really swallow properly, and it's
Yeah.
kind of stops.
all of those things have been a part of my experience, and I totally understand that, um, and it's because I'm driven. Am I a workaholic? I don't think of myself as a workaholic, but I am driven. And I think most of us who have ambition are driven, and so the trick is, I think, this is how I've come to resolve this conflict within myself, which is I've got to know who I am, and I got to know what serves me well. I got to know, in particular, the things that I eat that don't help me. And so you know, years ago, we're talking almost 20 years ago, I was having pain in my hands, like arthritic pain in my
Mhm.
joints. And I was drinking, 2 or 3 Diet Cokes a day. So when I encounter something like this, I'm going to go do some research. So and I found that aspartame, which is the sugar
Yeah.
in the drink, has an inflammatory reaction. I said, oh, so that's why. So I stopped cold turkey, and within a month, my hands were back to normal. And I don't drink soft drinks at all anymore, and I drink a lot of coffee, um, but I don't find that has any effect upon me. I guess it does other people, but what I'm saying is that I have been, since the mid '90s, I have been constantly evaluating where I am vis-a-vis what I'm eating, how I'm dealing with stress, and all of those things.
Mhm.
And in comparison to a lot of people that I know, I'm never sick. And could I lose 20 pounds? Yeah, I could probably stand to lose 20 pounds. Yeah, I know I could. But um, all those other things that people get, I never get. And like, I haven't had the flu since the last century, because I do take vitamins and nutraceuticals
Good. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
strengthen my immune system,
Mhm.
and I find that makes a huge difference. And I sleep well. I sleep. Uh, uh, I'll,
Yeah.
I'll give you this one other piece, and I'm interested in your thoughts about sleep. When I wrote my book, Circle of Impact, I'll show you a picture of it. Um,
Mhm.
Came
Yeah.
out in 2018. When I began writing it, I found that I would, uh, you know, write during the day, and I would, you know, kind of run out of mental steam, mid afternoon. And then I would do things with people at night. And so I was going to bed at, 10, 11 o'clock at night. And then I would wake up after a couple of 3 hours, and, I was still tired, but I had thoughts. I had to write them down. So over a period of time, I changed my sleep pattern so that I would go to bed at 8:30 at night, and I would sleep for 3 or 4 hours, um, or I may sleep for 6 hours, and then I would get up and I would write for anywhere from 2 to 6 hours, and I would be up at 3 writing until about 10 in the morning, and then I had kind of expended all that mental energy that I
Mhm.
needed for writing, and then for the rest of the day I was just gonna be engaged with talking to people. And so I came to the conclusion that my day starts when I go to bed, and the quality of my sleep dictates the quality of my day, the quality of the work that I do. And and I had never heard anyone kind of talk in those terms.
No, no,
Found that makes a huge difference.
yeah.
Um, so and that I'd try not to eat anything after 6. Things like this. Uh,
Yeah.
what do you think about those
So
things?
that is a really interesting. And I love the fact that you've actually turned that around. I mean, we have those natural circadian rhythms, but you can adapt it. And if that is your and I love that real positiveness about sleep, because we kind of think, oh, sleep's at the end of the day, we try and squeeze it in, and people go, oh, but I might that fear of missing out. I'm just gonna
Yeah,
I'll eke it out, and then I'll crash out, and then I'll come back. But if you think about, I mean, it's a bit like your phone. Um, you charge it up because you rely on your phone. If it's not fully charged, it's not going to do you any good at all. Or laptops, whatever you're going to use, the tools of your trade. And I think absolutely the sleep is one of the priorities of life. It is that way that the body will rest and repair in that time. The liver goes through a number of detoxification phases, and it can do that when you're not when you're in that fasted state. So you're not stuffing yourself with food. Your digestion's when you're eating earlier, which is fantastic, and you're going to bed. You've allowed that time to digest. Your body's given that time to kind of do all its mending, and does that restorative. So for you, absolutely, you can get up at 3 and go, I'm here and I can write. And that's probably from your perspective, it absolutely works for you. And I think it's really down to listening to your body
yeah,
and not expecting too much. You just have to think, okay, my body does need to rest, but it's the quality rest. And then once it's then I can go in and do my day's work, or be absolutely creative. I mean, there's a oh gosh, I can't remember who wrote the 5 a.m. club. I can't remember top of my
oh
head.
mm. Oh, I've heard about this. I don't
Yes,
know who that is, but yes, I've heard about this.
yes, I've got it upstairs by my bed actually. But he was saying that actually getting up maybe a couple of hours earlier, and this is when you use that creativity. It's so every everybody's different, but it's finding out what works for you. And I think it's good to have that. You've obviously got a good sleep hygiene in terms of finishing your eating window early, so you're allowing your body to digest, and then it can go into that repair mode. And having that, not I always say to clients, well, if you have problems sleeping, make sure that you have digested. You're not eating or snacking at 10, having your midnight snack or 10 o'clock snack and expecting to go to bed at 11, because guess what, your body's still trying to process. And you're going to be waking, and if you haven't eaten the right things at 10 o'clock at night, and you've eaten something, perhaps a sugary snack, or it's not a balanced meal, you're going to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning with blood sugar imbalance. So your body wake you up and you suddenly think, oh, well, am I hungry? Didn't have my snack at 10 o'clock. So I think it's kind of having some good routines that is right for you. So letting that body rest, and not being stimulated by bad news, or looking at the news or social media, and just having that sort of nice sort of wind down routine, that you're getting your body into that sort of relaxed state. that they can get on and do all the processes that it needs to do. It needs to, just detoxify and clear out, ready for you to perform the next morning. Just interesting. When do you break your fast? What time do you break your fast?
If I was on a regular regimen, I'm in the midst of transition. I'm packing
Mm-hmm.
this house up and I'm moving next week, so it's chaotic. My normal regimen would be I would get up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
probably fix coffee, but then I really do not try to eat before 11
Okay.
because I'm not hungry. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not hungry until about lunchtime, and then it's usually early afternoon. I'll have something like yesterday. I had a sandwich, at like 1 o'clock or something like that, 12:30, and I went to bed at 9 o'clock. I hadn't had anything else, uh, and except more coffee. I drink a lot of coffee, uh, and then I woke up in the middle of the night for a brief period, but then went back to sleep and woke up. Finally, got up at 4, and I got up, took a shower, got dressed, and went to an all-night diner and ate a meal of steak and eggs.
Okay.
And so I will I'll live off of that for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And the what I I'm curious as to what you're going to say. What I have found is that carbohydrates don't work for me at all, and they create a sluggishness. And even though they're appealing, they're lovely to eat.
Mm-hmm.
But protein in its various forms is really what fuels me. And so these people who are living off the what do they call it, the carnivore diet, that has an appeal to me, but it's not really what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's too restrictive.
Yeah.
So what do you think about these? There's sort of I hate. I'm going to characterize it, and if it's the wrong characterization, you please tell me so. But there always seems to be the next fad, dietary fad, or a nutritional fad,
Yeah.
and so how should we think about these things?
So yeah, and I think that all the fads of faddy diets, they are so they're really confusing for anybody, and and particularly this time of year, we have on your social media feeds, drink this juice for 2 weeks and shed 20 pounds, or
Yeah.
do this stuff, and it's kind of like, whoa, our bodies actually, we need to nourish and nurture. So and I'm not a person that does, we don't deprive. I don't deprive people. I don't want to be deprived myself. So why would I ever want to deprive my clients? So it's very much that it's around, what does your body need? What does it need to function on? So how do you nourish your body? How do you ensure that it's getting the right raw materials for energy production? And energy production is physical and mental, because your brain is such a hungry organ. It need, your brain, for instance, will need, and I'm thinking, from you, if you're doing your writing and all the interviews you do, it needs hydration, because the majority of your brain is water.
Right.
And then we need to look at the other nutrients in terms of what else does it make. So if you squeezed all the water out of your brain, 60% of it is fat, because it's the cell membranes are all
Right.
fat, fat. So we need to keep it nice and fluid for those neurotransmitters to work across. And then we have protein for the structure and for the how our neurotransmitters are made from protein. And you have your carbohydrates that will really there for fueling your brain. And obviously we can use ketones as well. So we can burn energy from fat to create ketones, and your brain does work well with that. So when you go back to your steak and eggs in the morning, that's why you can function, because you've got your some good raw materials there. You've got some some fats there that will help burn those ketones. So, and you're burning body fat as well. But the diets, and this is where I personally believe in there's no one diet that fits everybody. So what works for you wouldn't work for me. I don't think I could sit there at 4 o'clock in the morning and actually digest steak very well at all. But that's because we're all biochemically unique.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where these fad diets that do this, do that, it doesn't work for people. And this is it's important that you look at what is right for your body. What do you want your body to do? How do you fuel it effectively for you? And we are, as I said before, we're all biochemically unique. So we will all need, we will use our body in different ways. So therefore we have to kind of fuel it in different ways. And this goes back to this, it's nourishment. And thinking about, going back to also circadian rhythms, when you're saying about your caffeine or your coffee, do you have full caffeine or are you decaffeinated?
Oh, I'm always caffeinated.
Yeah, full on caffeine. Fantastic. So it was quite interesting. I'm just going to use actually one of my recent clients example here. This is where, again, why people are so different. And she came to see me, to work with me, because she was a woman in leadership. She was of a certain age. She's tried diets all under the sun. She can't shift her weight. And she said it moves probably by a couple of pounds, but that's it. And she said, and I can not eat anything and I still don't lose it. So I looked at her diet, but also before, as I was doing that, because she has a very stressful job, I said, okay, I would like to do some testing. Mm-hmm. So we tested her adrenal glands to look at her adrenal function, and to look at her cortisol and her DHEA, just to make sure that that wasn't out of kilter, because obviously we know cortisol can cause that weight gain over time. So she did her test. When I started to piece things together, I had her test results, and we measure the cortisol response first thing in the mornings. So we look at your normal circadian rhythm of cortisol against, obviously, to my clients, and then we want to see it drop down nicely. So in the morning, so a normal circadian rhythm will be, I think if I do it that way, you can see it. So first thing in the morning, it's high, because you have high amount of cortisol to get you out of bed in the morning, and it's there for really until you start to eat. So that's when you break your fast or you have a drink, it will stay there, and then it will start to come down the rest of the day. As it comes down, obviously then that's when we can then start to, at the end of the day, we want it nice and low, so then melatonin can start to build, so we get into that sort of sleep pattern, so we have a decent night's sleep. She reported that she didn't sleep very well either. So when I looked at her test results against her food diary, because I always get my clients to look at, what have you been eating and drinking? She hardly ate anything. She was fasting until lunchtime. She might have a sandwich, and then she probably wouldn't eat, or she might graze until dinner time, and then go to bed absolutely exhausted and not sleep. She wasn't, and her calorie, if I ever looked at her, I mean, I don't count calories either, but if I looked at her calorie intake, it would be, under the 2,000 a day or 1,800 a day. What was happening was that she had quite a high cortisol response in the morning in anticipation of a day ahead. She then she was then drinking, and this is again, there's some of the fad diets, matcha green tea because she read that it's great for women, particularly women. The green tea, the caffeine, and matcha tea is fantastic to help lose weight. The first green tea she had, her cortisol levels shot up 320%. They were off the scale from having this green tea. Her cortisol levels were highish in the morning, high side of normal, so they were still in the normal side. The caffeine shot them right up. And then she was having 3 cups of green tea in the morning to keep her going until lunchtime.
Oh,
So
yeah.
her cortisol levels were so high, and then they started to drop when she started to eat. And then so at the end of the day, her cortisol levels weren't where she needed to be. They weren't down. So therefore her melatonin wasn't building enough for her to get her off to a good night's sleep. So very simply, we cut out, we gave her, she still have green tea, but she have decaffeinated now. So she doesn't get that spike. And she's eating more. She's breaking her fast. For her, it's important to break her fast earlier in the morning to get to help bring the cortisol levels down. And she's actually reporting that she's now losing a couple of pounds a week. Nice and steady. This is what we want. And she's feeling more energized throughout the day. She's making good business decisions. She can sit through meetings. And she said, I don't get the brain fog I used to get in the afternoon. And I can get home and I can go for a riding lesson. This is fantastic. So we kind of, just by changing a few things, she's actually eating more, and she can't believe she's eating more. She's not depriving herself, but it's eating the right things and at the right time. And what we've done is that her fasting, we've brought her eating window down. So we have, it's instead of breaking the fast and then sort of getting the body into this sort of stress state, because it's thinking, when am I next going to have my next meal? Because if your blood sugar levels go down, your stress response rises for your body to then make its own glucose from the liver, from your stored supplies. So you've got this stress response happening, because your cortisol is not just there for stress, it's there to help bring your sugar levels up as well when they're low. So we're kind of just calming everything down for her. So she's a little bit more less, her body's less stressed. So which will help bring the inflammation down. And so it's just by it tweaking everything, but it's looking at what was right for her, trying a few different things. So again, what's working for you and what feels good for you is very different. So it's just looking at 2 ends of the spectrum there, that she obviously can't, from caffeine for her was absolutely not the right thing, and it's caused more stress in her body than she needed. But if you're sleeping and everything's working, that's perfectly okay. So it just shows how very different we are. And if we start going on to looking at picking up a diet on social media and expecting drinking that juice for 2 weeks is going to shift 20 pounds of weight, it might work for somebody, but it's not going to work for me.
It would seem that one of the other questions to answer is, am I better working for someone, or am I better working for myself? Because both of them can be stress inducing. But I mean, I've been working for myself since the mid-90s, and there have been times when there was a lot of stress with that. After the Great Recession of the 2000s, in 2009, I lost all my business within about 6 weeks. All my clients left me. Oh, what am I going to do now? Well, I'm going to do what I did when I started. I'm going to go start talking to people. And I guess what I'm asking is, there's this intimacy between our psychological makeup and our physiological makeup. And the more we understand how those two interface, the stronger we're going to be and be able to last for a long time and to live a long life. And I mean, I think that's what I see from all of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And isn't that also down that life experience, isn't it? Is that, you and I can recognize that because we have had life experience, and we've learned from things that haven't worked well, and we're putting into place different practices, and also that reading and meeting people, and just that interest in life, we can get there. Whereas somebody that perhaps youngsters that are starting out won't perhaps correlate with that at all. They're expecting to go at 100 miles an hour, push through when they're feeling tired, forget to eat, or eat all the wrong thing, all the grabbing burgers here and in soft drinks there, all those sorts of things. Whereas now we can go, actually, no, this is all around this looking after ourselves. As we go into our midlife and beyond, it's looking at we've got to nourish ourselves, we've got to allow that time for our rest and repair. We need good recovery time, and I think that's something that we get through a little bit of lifespan and a little bit of wisdom that we've picked up, from people that we've spoken to, or from things that we've read. It's
I have one more. I have one more question for you. Actually, I have a couple of questions more, but this one in particular is related to this. What are your thoughts about alcohol? Drinking
my
wine,
thoughts now.
whiskey.
Okay. It's so alcohol can act as a stress. Well, it does act as a stressor on the body. So we have to be, I'm a person that I do enjoy a glass of wine with a meal. I think that pairs very, very well. And I think, again, it's down to drinking responsibly, and it's anything in excess is going to be bad for you. So I think it's moderating it, and just listen to your body. How does your body react to it? So if I've got clients who are my stressed out professionals that come, they've been working long hours, that we know that they've got a high amount of cortisol, that it's impacting their health, and they come home and they might down a couple of glasses of wine or a G&T. That was the first thing that they'd reach for. It's going to stress their adrenal glands. So if it's at the evening, you don't want to have high cortisol levels. So it's kind of working with that individual and saying, actually, that's not what you need. So with and again with clients that are menopause clients, again, for the exact same reason, that cortisol levels is going to cause that stress. It will cause more hot flushes than anything else. It's not going to help you. So it's looking at where that person is. But for anybody else that's not that doesn't have any other issues, just it's that having that just drinking, maybe it's 1 or 2 glasses of wine with a meal, and it's having that break as well to let your liver detoxify. So we always suggest you have a 2 to 3 days break, just to let the liver cope with. So it's not an added burden. Your liver has to. It's not just around, people think about liver as detoxifying alcohol. It's all the other byproducts that we actually, that our bodies are going through. It's got to get rid of any sort of medications that people take. Any of our, all our hormones have to be packaged up and removed out of our body. So it's allowing your body that time to rest and repair, not putting that extra stress on. So and also then there's why I like the wine, particularly red wine. You have some of the antioxidants, the resveratrol in there, which, we talk about the Mediterranean diet. They're high in the polyphenols there. So in moderation, absolutely, a glass or two. The research is there that that's absolutely fine. But it's it's being responsible, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm very much on the moderation of it. I don't like inebriation, and I watch videos of people talking about them taking mushrooms, and they doing all these other psychedelics, and which take them out of their own kind of mind and into another world. I'm not interested in that at all, and I see alcohol as kind of a pathway towards
Yeah.
that sort of alternative experience, and I'm not really interested. I like the flavor, and I
Yeah.
don't need a whole lot of it to enjoy it. And I think that's like a lot of the stuff that I find is that if you can enjoy a little bit, then that's sufficient.
Yeah, absolutely. It hits the dopamine pathways, doesn't it? Which is that pleasure seeking, that reward. And if you
Yeah.
are that way, if you have that a dominance in the dopamine, that's alcohol, smoking, drugs, sex, all the addictions are kind of goes into that sort of pathway.
Right.
So yeah.
So are you seeing patterns of behavior that say particularly coming out of COVID, patterns of behavior about the way people are eating and taking care of themselves that seem to be different than what it was before COVID? It can can you see any, or is that this sort of thing just it's the same thing it's always been and will always be kind of this way? I,
I,
to
I
me,
think
that might be
clients have perhaps a little bit more of an understand. They've learned to listen to their bodies,
uh,
and since COVID, and I think it was very much that they couldn't see. They were at home, and they perhaps realised that, okay, well, I've got digestive issues, or my stress levels have reduced, and my digestion's got better. All those things. They kind of noticed what they noticed. Um, and some have got the inquiring mind that they go on and make those changes. And I know we all ate slightly differently, with the way we ran our lives in COVID. So I think people would have may have changed the behaviour slightly. But then, if I think about what I saw at Christmas, when I spoke to my client, I've caught up with all my clients now since Christmas, and I would say probably about 80% of them, they and again, my majority of my clients are I would say they're probably on the they are the typical stressed out executives, and they've lived life in the fast lane this Christmas, and I think probably thinking about it that it was the first proper Christmas we've had here in the UK without any COVID rules. People really got back into. We started mixing earlier. Obviously, we've been traveling, and people's immunity perhaps it isn't quite as strong as it used to be. And that can be down to different stresses as well, because obviously our immune function switches off when we're in that stress state. But actually, maybe we haven't. People say, "Oh, I'm not sure if it was COVID or it was a cold." Well, there's lots of other but it's a virus. There's lots of viruses around. So just that we we've happened to name one of them particularly. So we're and it just happened. And also this time of year, our vitamin D levels naturally decline, because our vitamin D mainly is we make a lot from the sunshine, that the action of the sunshine hitting the skin. Come November, December, here in the UK, certainly, we're not going to see it unless you're lucky enough to go on holiday. So it's kind of a natural thing, which is probably where we were 5-10 years ago, where we know it's normally cold and flu time, and I think it's just that it's been a little bit different. So people a little bit more wary, and certainly people I'm seeing now is thinking, well, I've been ill over Christmas and can't seem to shake this off. So it's a lot around, again, it's that nourishment. Just nurture yourself. Forget the detox, the January detox. That's going to just stress your body even more. Just look after yourself. Eat the foods that are going to help your liver detoxify everything. Making sure that you're getting enough nutrients to protect your immune system. So it's kind of looking after clients. So even if they come with me with one particular health concern, I'm there trying to always look at immune function, just making sure that they've got some immunity to help them for the next couple of months. Always making sure you can help increase their energy levels, because you want your client to perform the best possible version of themselves. Basically, that's kind of how I want my clients to finish up after they've worked with me for 3 months. They're in that best possible versions for them.
Well, Claire, this has been fascinating. Your insight into how our bodies function in the context of stress is really quite interesting, and I'm glad you've been on the show today. I mean, you clarified some things in my own thinking, and I see how some of the things I've been doing over the last 25 years have put me in the position where I am now. And you're kind of saying, oh, well, that's what you should have done. And so I feel good about that. So thank you.
Hopefully I haven't said what you should have done, because
Well, I
everyone is
know what I
different.
shouldn't do. And that's the next list to work on. But as always, but I'm grateful for you being on the show, and
Thank you very much for inviting me.
um, what we normally do is we put contact information on the show notes so that if people want to be in touch with you, they can. And so if you'll send me that, we'll put that in the show notes when we post the video later in February.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. And let me ask you one other question. I've been asking people, as you see the world undergoing a lot of change, do you have hope for the future? Or where do you find hope for the future? I mean, you're engaged with people on a regular basis at at these very stressful moments in their lives. So, are you finding that their capacity to deal with their stresses gives you a sense of hope for them overcoming that and being able to really flourish in the future?
Yes, I do, and I think it's people now realise that stress is actually quite natural. It's a natural process that we all go through, and it's all the different stresses. And I think it's the fact that people are reaching out. People want to, are more comfortable in asking for support.
Yeah.
And we know that stress manifests itself in many different ways, from the physicality to from a mental perspective. It's so I think people now recognize that they need that support, and I absolutely have hope with people and hope and joy from the people that I've worked with. And from, I suppose, from a nutritionist perspective, quite often we work with the client with other practitioners, whether it's with their GP or a specialist or other therapists, and to find now that people have this support structure, I think is fantastic. And certainly I'm beginning to see it in the workplace, that if I'm working with with corporate companies, that they have the well-being of their employees really at heart, and giving them the support that they need. So yes, I do have hope.
I'm glad to hear that. I agree with you. I'm hopeful for the future, because I do think that people have recognized that they need to take more care of themselves and be more responsible for their life situations. And you're giving them that expert insight that allows them to be able to be effective in taking charge of their lives. And so I think that's really, really great.
Fantastic.
All right. Well, thank you, Claire, for being here. And thank you, everyone, for watching. If you want to sign up, register, give us a check mark, whatever you want to do, leave us a comment. We'd love to know that you've watched and know that there's something here that you have benefited from. And I'm glad that you've been with us today. And we'll see you next time here on the Eddie Network podcast. Bye-bye.